Hi everyone, my name's Jack. Welcome back to this week's episode of WAAC Weekly, episode 17, show where we look at Team Red Path news as well as World Eaters out in the world. This week, World Eaters got their first GT win, pretty big. Nearly 400 games played as well, also pretty big, and a solid 56% win rate. Let's get into the video. Welcome back. So we will go straight into the World Eaters tournament roundup. As I've mentioned, there were quite a few games, nearly 400, so 370 from a grand total of 98 players. So that was 33 GT performances and also 65 RTTs. This included 3 event wins, so 2 RTTs and also a 34-player GT. In terms of the rankings, Liam Worzick remains at the top of the leaderboard with Shoyler Quinn pushing hard, so that he's within half an ITC point at the moment. Both of them have now filled out their 4 events, so I'd expect any gains now on their scores to be slightly smaller. Now that all 4, it'll just be better events replacing the current ones. Our very own Jamie Miller is currently in 5th, having played 3 events so far. Dora's down in 40th with 2 events played so far, and I am in 55th with 1 event so far, although I'm looking to change that in the next few months. I'm potentially doing 7 events in 10 weeks, but we'll see if I go that insane. So, up next, I guess, we'll look onto ITC Team Red Path news. As I mentioned, maybe? Don't think I did. Jamie was in action this weekend at the Gemhammer RTT. We also had our very own fair rarity from Discord, Scott Beilby, at the Hobby Chest RTT. So lists are a thing. Lists. So let's start with Scott then. At the Hobby Chest RTT, he finished 5th place out of 16, going a very respectable 2-1. And this is his list. So instantly noticeable. No Pergotuz. Master of Execution's Talisman Rage is the pick a core unit, and they get 6s to hit auto wounds. Then lots of Berserkers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 30 Berserkers, all with icons and eviscerators. 3 MSU squads of 8 bound, so only 9 of them. An Exalted 8 bound squad as well. 2 Spawn, a Mauler Fiend with Lash Tendrils, 2 Rhinos, and Angron. 1 CP spent on the relic. Yeah, I mean, it's a very, it's a trade heavy list, right? So you've got 9, 10 smallish trade units, 2 Chaos Spawn for the blood type points, Mauler Fiend potentially into harder targets, hopefully it'll get there, auto draw fire of Angron, who is himself good for killing big stuff. Yeah, it's a very, I feel like Dara would have a lot of fun playing this list as well, or Ron, to be honest. There's a lot of trading to go on here. It's quite an intensive, I'd imagine, quite an intensive micro game. But I'm here for it. Yeah, so 2-1. Potentially Scott's first event with the new book. So a very, very solid first outing. And then up next is Jamie, who went to the Gemhammer RTT March 2023. His list is slightly different, starting off with Pergotuz and 40 Jackals, both with icons and skull smashers. I'm pretty sure anyone who's in the Discord will recognise this as turn 2 and turn 3 of strat reserving them. Hopefully once they've got some buffs up, because point for point, Jackals have, they're very efficient. They have a lot of attacks. So you get to 4 attacks, strength 4 or potentially 5, and you don't mind losing a couple to the mortal wounds if you have 20 of them. So 4 attacks, strength 4 or 5, AP 1 damage. The Dishonored goes to strength 5 or 6, -2 2 damage, and the 2 of them will have 16 attacks between them. Yes, 16 attacks between them. So they can punch above their weight, because each of these squads is only 155 points. So 40 Jackals, 20 Berserkers, more trading, 2 small squads of 8 bound, so 2 small squads of 3, 1 with glaive and 1 with lacerators. Interesting choice. I assume for different targets. 2 squads of exalted 8 bound, both with the double fists, so they are for the hard targets. 3 individual spawn, an Achilles with all the multi-melters to try and plink some or crack some transports. Basically doing what the knights in my list do, I would assume. Plink transports, try and get some extra blood tithe in your shooting phase and hit some hard targets or priority targets that you need dead before you're likely to get into melee with them. Anything that's screened, really. And then 2 rhinos to transport all the berserkers up, I would imagine. And give them some speed boosts. So yeah, Jamie finished 8th in a 24-player RTT. I think he went 2-0 and then he lost his last game, and it was a very tight game against a very tuned Iron Hands list. So, very strong performance again. As said, Jamie's now played 3 events. I believe only 2 of those have been with the new codex because of their silly little LVO RTT that is counted in the rankings for this year, because technically it's this season. So yeah, 2 members of Team Red Path in action. Dara's going to a GT in Dublin next weekend at time of recording, so I'm sure we will get to see him smash that up next week. My next event is in 2 weeks' time, so I'll be doing list submission this Saturday coming up. I'm going to the world's largest RTT. It's now confirmed to be 64 players for a 3-round tournament. So that's going to be interesting. I think if my maths is right, that means there's going to be 8 players undefeated at the end of it, which is a weird one. That's kind of the back of my mind goal, I think, for that tournament. But I'm gonna see. I'm testing Invocatus and its GW terrain. So we'll see how it goes. And also an event that size, there's a lot of quite good players going as well, so the chances of me having a tough run are quite a lot higher than they would be, ironically, at a smaller event with fewer good players. So undefeated would be nice. We'll see. Because I haven't been undefeated that much, so once. I've only been undefeated at an event once. So that would be interesting. But onto the main meat of the video then. We have had 17 really strong performances this week. I'm not going to go through every single list because they look quite similar, some of them. And yeah, 17. So basically 17 lists have fed it into the unit matrix, which we'll get onto in a bit. I'm going to look at 6 of them. So the 3 event winning lists, another 3-0 list, and then a couple of 4-1 lists that ended up podiuming at 30 plus player GTs. So probably also worth looking at. Come from quite a diverse meta as well. I've got everything from the US to Scotland to England to Hungary. So yeah, it's going to give us a nice wide take. So up first we have James Greensmith, who went 3-0 at the ELG 2023 March tournament. So he finished 2nd of 22. Yeah, so compulsory fast attack, interesting. Invocatus, no warlord trait. 4 squads of 5 berserkers. 2 squads of 3 8-bound. Hellbrute with a flamer and a plasma cannon. Okay. 3 spawn, 2 rhinos, and Angron with his warlord trait. So the stuff that jumps out here for me, the individual Hellbrute spending for the heavy flamer and the plasma cannon, I'm assuming spare points, but then I don't know. I would probably go for icons instead of 10 points on a heavy flamer, but it depends on the plan for the heavy flamer, I guess. Following Invocatus around makes it speedy or faster and acceptable speed, rather than the 6-inch move that it's stuck with base. Really good to see Angron back in action in some of the top list again. Missed him last week, so again, similar to Scott's list, this is quite a small squad sort of trade intense list. Apart from Angron, I have missed the most important part of the list because I can't read. Greater Frost Scorpion. It's not a trade list. It is run Angron and the Greater Brass Scorpion up at the same point on the table or on 2 flanks of the table and see if the opponent can deal with either of them before the other one connects. The rest of it is there to, I don't know, mop up, I guess. Yeah, I mean that's like style points, and you went 3-0. That's just Chad, right? Second out of 22 with that list. Yeah, I mean the Berserkers and 8-bound are there to score points, sit on points, trade basically. The Hellbrute is there, I guess, as some fire support, and Invocatus helps him get around faster, I guess. Spawn as Blood type battery, Rhino for the Berserkers. He's actually fit quite a lot into that list, to be honest. Considering there's two models that combined take up like 800 points, nearly 800 points. Yeah, really strong forwards. Congratulations. So up next we have Corey Sanfelice. Who finished 3-0 at the Impact Zone RTT. So this was first. He was one of the event wins, first of 14. So Invocatus, no Warlord trait again. 4 squads of Berserkers, 3 with Icons, all with Eviscerators. 3 MSU squads of 8-bound, 3 squads of Exalted 8-bound, 3 individual Spawn, 2 Rhinos, and Angron. Another list with Angron doing well. Love to see it. Yeah, and spent for the Warlord trait as well. So lots of CP. Again, MSU trade. This is actually an MSU trading list. There is no sneaky Greater Brass Scorpion hiding at the bottom. Yeah, I mean, he's got, 10 squads that trade and Angron. And none of these squads are especially expensive considering what they're likely to kill. Like, you should be able to trade up with these most of the time. Yeah, it's just a really solid list. A really, tuned list. To be honest, probably something along the lines of what I'd like to run if I was running Pure World Eaters without any Knights. But I like Knights at the moment. So, yeah. So, an event win. Impact Zone 40k RTT from Corey. Massive performance. Up next, the March ITC Warhammer RTT. This is Ryan Carra, who finished first again. Another event win. First of 13 this time, with 3-0. This is a more traditional Invocatus with his Warlord trait. Demon Prince with the Helm for his eye, so that's the -1 to wound. Just makes him a guided missile that is slightly more irritating to kill because -1 to wound on toughness 6. Pretty strong, apparently. 4 squads of Berserkers, all the Eviscerators, no Icons. 2 max squads of normal 8-bound, so 2 squads of 6. That's interesting. Both with the heavy chain glaives. That's an interesting choice as well, just because it feels like with a squad of 6, you have so many attacks that you don't necessarily need the chain glaive attacks, but fair enough. 2 squads of Exalted 8-bound, 3 Spawn, a Rhino, and then some Brigands who have Bold Tyrants, which is the extra AP at 18 inches. Makes the chain guns on the Brigands AP3, which is pretty nice, and AP5 on the Thermal Spears if you ever need that, I guess. I guess it's useful into Imperial Guard tanks, because it means they don't have a save. But the AP3 on the chain guns, really nice into most things nowadays. Yeah, so. Yeah, I mean, you don't see the max squads of 8-bound too much anymore. I think the people went off them as soon as they realised about Blast and the coherency thing. So 5 8-bound, for context, with 6+ squad sizes, you need to have 2 models within coherency. Whereas a 5-man squad, you only need to have 1. So you can spread out a 5-man squad a lot wider than you can a 6-man squad, because of the 6-man squad you will need to anchor on each end of the line. Whereas 5-man can just be a straight line. So it helps with things like move blocking, and just tagging and just covering more ground, like controlling more of the board. So a lot of people tend to veer away from the 6-mans and go for 5 or even 4s. But 5s if you're going for that max coverage across a wide front. Yeah, and then 8 Berserkers all without. There's only 1 Rhino, so 2 of those squads are in the Rhino, I'm guessing, and then the rest are strat reserving or running or sitting back on a back objective. Yeah, so another event win. Massive, really strong performance from Ryan. Up next, we're gonna go back to we're moving into GTS. The next two aren't event wins and they aren't undefeated, but they were strong performances in tough fields. So we will go to the War of the Roses, which happened in, I think it was at Glasshammer. And so this is Matt Robertson, who finished second. For context, first place was Manny Chima with his Dark Angels list. So this was quite a competitive tournament. So Matt's list is gloriously laid out. Pergotuz, no Warlord trait, 4 squads of Berserkers, all with Eviscerators and Icons, 2 squads of 10 Jackals, bare bones, 3 squads of 4 8-bound, 1 squad of Exalted 8-bound, 2 squads of Chaos Spawn, 1 Dreadclaw drop pod, 1 Rhino, and Angron with his Warlord trait. Another list that has done very well with Angron this week. Yeah, so 10 Berserkers in the Rhino, 10 Berserkers presumably in the Dreadclaw, although 8-bound can also go in Dreadclaws. You can get 10 of them in because of a keyword oversight. GW forgot that 8-bound don't have the possessed keyword when they updated the Forge World FAQ. So probably not intentional, but it's there for now. So I guess enjoy. Gives him some options basically in terms of what he puts in there. I would imagine it's 2 squads of 5 Berserkers though, for the one of them gets the 3d6 inch charge, right? To distract turn 1, potentially, depending on the mission. But yeah, another kind of trade list with Angron to like draw fire off all of the scoring units. Because if Angron makes contact, he kills stuff. And if you want to stop scoring, you kill small units, but then Angron makes contact and murders you and stops you falling back and just generally is a nuisance. Or you kill Angron and then there's scoring units everywhere. So that's the decision, right? And clearly Matt is a very competent pilot as well, piloting it to a 4-1 second place finish at 34 player GT. Up next we have Ryan Kerr at the Kelpie Crusade GT in Scotland. He finished second place of 32 with another 4-1. Again, for context, first place was Innes Wilson, running his latest Iron Hands filth, being part of the problem, all of that good stuff. So Ryan's list was Pergotuz with his Warlord trait, Glaive Lord, 4 squads of 5 Berserkers, 3 with Icons, all with Eviscerators, 3 squads of 5 8-bound, 3 squads of Exalted 8-bound, 3 Chaos Spawn, and 2 Rhinos. That is almost exactly where I believe Vanilla's list is at now, or the one that was doing the rounds at the start of the when the Codex first came out. There's been various evolutions and tweaks, and I think the 5th squad of Berserkers has been dropped for the Wild Eaters, for the Juggerlord with Glaive. The 3 squads of 5 8-bound are potentially subject to change as well. There might be there's some people who want to drop them down to 4, but because of overkill and stuff like that. But it's a very solid list, right? It just hits like a truck, and is very fast. So I can see why it did quite well, especially in the hands of what is presumably a very good pilot. Yeah. So up next, and finally, we are onto the main event, which is our GT winning list. So I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Pergotuz, LCOTSV 3. It was a Hungarian event. So it's a name again that I am going to butcher, so I apologise. Mate Cszaszar finished 5-0 at this event. Used WTC scoring, and it was an event win. So this is the first GT winning list that Worldies have had this year, and well, for a while now. So Pergotuz with his Warlord trait, Demon Prince with the -1 to Wound Relic, 4 squads of 5 Berserkers, no Icons but all Eviscerators, 3 squads of 5 8-bound, 3 squads of 3 Exalted 8-bound, 2 Spawn, and 2 Rhinos. So it cuts some points. So it cuts from the last list we looked at, it cuts the spawn and some of the icons to swap the Juggerlord into a Demon Prince. That's the main difference there. I might have to look at this Demon Prince, which means painting the new model, which I have sat primed at downstairs somewhere. Because he's showing up a lot. The -1 to wound Demon Prince. Yeah, Lash Raters on the 8-bound champions is what I would go with. The damage 3 is amazing, and then damage 3 all over the exalted 8-bounds as well. Yeah, I mean it's a fairly archetypal list at this point. The Demon Prince is a nice tech piece as a guided missile. His profile is gross still. Like, it was pretty gross in our old code in the CSM book, and remains pretty gross. And making him -1 to wound as well just means he's a very nice beat stick character. Outside of Angron, we don't necessarily have, like, there's the Glaive Lord is a good meme and can spike, and Khorne is all right if he gets there. But Demon Prince is 12-inch move and also hits like a train, and flies. And if you make him -1 to wound, he is just a bit of a dick to shift. And yeah, I can see why he's popular, basically. Yeah, so congratulations, massive congratulations for the first event win. Yeah, so the one move briefly onto the unit matrix, just for this week. Just check it is for this week. It is for this week. Yeah, so quite a lot of movement this week, actually, compared to last week. Spawn showing up in every list. Berserker showing up in most lists, although there was a list that one of the undefeated lists, actually, that did not have any Berserkers in, just had Jackals and some 8-bound. Invocatus in almost every list that I looked at. And then the Angron versus Invocatus Warlord trait battle is ongoing. It was almost a 50-50 split this week. Something really interesting that I noticed was there were 9 undefeated lists this week. So 1 5-0 lists and then 8 3-0 lists. The other 3-0 lists that I didn't mention didn't win their events. That's why we didn't go through them. But Angron is in 6 of the 9 undefeated lists from this week, which is really interesting. Whereas Invocatus' Warlord trait is only in 3. So that's something to consider. I think people are working out how to use Angron properly, which is interesting to see. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the rest of the stuff is fairly standard. I think there is potentially a swing away from 8-bound, actually. It'll be interesting to see if that continues. People are looking more towards Berserkers. I know Jamie and Dara have been talking a lot about bigger squads of Jackals, using and like the gold of the Codex being in the troops just because they're cheap, and the cheapness of the stratagems makes them so versatile. It's sort of seeping through into some of my potential list building or like list tweaks that I'm thinking about. So like I think my Jackal squad is going from 10 to 20. I'm going to cut somewhere else, probably an 8-bound or 2 to allow for those 80 points. And then and probably going to use it as a strat reserve hammer in turn 3 once we've got some buffs up. But obviously that'll be matchup dependent, because some matches it won't work like that, or I'll be screened out. They won't be able to hit good targets, that kind of thing. I mean, I'm still testing the Invocatus Warlord trait as well. I think I'm my event in 2 weeks, I will be running the Invocatus Warlord trait. The rest of the list is kind of fluid. At the moment in my local club cup games, I'm running all my local club games. I'm running the Glaive Lord as well, and he has performed once. I got 19 hits off 8 attacks, so that was fun. But yeah, everything else is kind of still up in the air. I am still, as I said, I'm still enjoying War Dogs. I'm still on Executioners. I know there are people championing Brigands elsewhere. It's not showing up so much in the... Oh wait, it is. More people are running Brigands than Executioners at the moment, which is, cool. And there's a bit more... People are moving away from the offerings a bit, which is fine. I think where the offerings on Executioners in particular is good. It also makes the thermal spear a bit more reliable, but I think most of the killing power of the brigands is in the chain guns, especially if you get the AP3 trait at 18 inches. Although that obviously does require you to use them a bit more aggressively, and I like the way I'm using executioners is having them sit quite far back, out of harm's way, screening, babysitting my back objective basically, because their guns are such long range. They can reach out and hit anything that they can see anyway, because 60-inch range. So anyway, it's a really interesting discussion. I could go on about it for a very long time. But yeah, keep building lists, people. Keep doing well with them, and shift the narrative, because yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting seeing the differences week on week in terms of what lists do well. Obviously, we're missing some context on things like terrain. We're missing context on missions as well. But it is interesting to see what trends we can identify. So, finally, the great game. So, the rankings. It's been a big week. So, in last place, Emperor's Children at 90 for the season at the moment. So, the season being 2 months old at this point, nearly 2 months old at this point. Emperor's Children are at 90, which is fine. They're the only ones without a standalone book. Thousand Suns are on 161. Again, fine. Not that popular at the moment. I think people have moved off them since people got fatigued playing the Thousand Suns Flamers build. Now that's been nerfed, people are moving off them. World Eaters are on a massive 230 players so far this season. For context, that's 34 more than the whole of last season. We ended last season on 196 players. We're already on 230 for this season. And then in first place, Death Guard at the moment are on 236. So we've reeled them in. We're catching them, and soon World Eaters will overtake Death Guard. I am confident. If not next week, it will be the week after, and I'm very excited for it. It just shows I guess it shows the impact of hobby lag, right? We were down around 180 last week, so we had nearly 60 new World Eaters players this week, which is great to see. So as people are getting stuff painted up on the table, enjoying games, all that good stuff, really good to see the growth of the player base. But yeah, join the Discord, join the discussion, coming at Dara loads about taking a Brass Scorpion because he needs to. And clearly, a Great Brass Scorpion and Angron is a build that works. So he needs to run that at his tournament on Saturday. Or beyond, but yeah. If he makes me talk about Leviathan Dreadnoughts on this show, I'm going to be very upset. Join Discord. Do that. Like and comment the video if you like and want to comment on it. I do my best to respond to all the comments that I can that are productive. So comment on the video if you have any questions, queries. We're looking to make some enhancements to this with some more visuals when I get time. But with the amount of events I have coming up, I probably won't have time for a while. And subscribe, most importantly, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We do also now have a Spotify series going, so Dar is interviewing people from around the community, World Eaters and otherwise. The show is called All Around the World Eaters. He talks about various topics. The last one that came out was with Ron about a competitive mindset and competitive versus casual, whether that needs to be a distinction that's made and whether there needs to be a versus in between. It's a really interesting show. I would highly recommend. We've got one coming up this week where he talks to Maxine about her experience with World Eaters, her playstyle in general, her approach to competitive 40k, I believe. So tune in for that. We now have streams Mondays and Thursdays on Twitch, where Dara paints some models very nicely for everyone. He goes into his custom lore a lot as well, so if you want to tune into that he would appreciate that, I'm sure. Subscribe to the YouTube channel though. Help us grow. We're nearly there for GW to start noticing us, so please help, share, tell your friends about us. But most importantly, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill main bat.